Australia's recent move to send 49 M1A1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine seems like a grand gesture. But let's not get too much excited. It's hard not to wonder if this is less about lending a helping hand and more about offloading some of Australia's military junk. Ukraine has been desperate for cutting edge tanks, and what do they get? Old creaky Abrams that are well past their prime. It is almost as if Australia is saying, here, take these, they have been gathering dust in our garage. The announcement by Pat Conroy, Australia's Minister for Defence Industry, was full of pomp. He promised these tanks would bring more firepower and mobility to Ukraine's military. But here is the thing, these M1A1 Abrams are no longer the flashy top tier tanks they once were. Australia acquired these tanks from the US a while ago. And while they did their job, the Royal Australian Army is already moving on to newer, shinier models, the M1A2s. So, what is the best way to make room for these advanced tanks? Why not send the old ones halfway across the world to Ukraine? It is a win win for Australia. They get to clear out some space, and Ukraine, well, they get tanks. The tanks, apparently worth a hefty $164 million, bring Australia's total military aid to Ukraine past the $1.3 billion mark. That sounds impressive until you realize some of these Abrams might be more useful as spare parts than actual weapons. Ukraine already has a few Abrams in action, courtesy of the US, and to put it kindly, the reviews have been mixed. Ukraine's earlier batch of Abrams was not exactly impressive. In fact, many of them have ended up in pieces, courtesy of Russian drones. There have been reports of tanks being pulled from the front line because they were too vulnerable to modern warfare, especially attacks from above in the air. It is not a great look when your multi-million dollar tank is a sitting duck for a drone. The timing of this donation is also curious. Australia has been dragging its feet on Ukraine's requests for tanks for over a year now. Ukraine even put together a flashy video basically begging for these tanks, basically begging for help, but it fell on deaf ears. Now, out of nowhere, Australia has decided to play the hero by shipping off these old machines. Let's not forget the tanks are not just out of date, they are also not well suited for Ukraine's combat conditions. The M1A1s were designed for NATO style operations where there is plenty of air support and artillery fire to soften the battlefield before the tanks roll in. Ukraine, however, has been quite vocal about not having enough of either, meaning these Abrams could end up being easy pickings for Russian forces. In the end, while Ukraine might appreciate this gesture, one cannot shake the feeling that Australia is getting the better deal here. Ukraine gets a bunch of aging tanks that need a facelift, and Australia gets to pat itself on the back for helping out, all while making room for the newer models. If that is not a win win, I do not know what is.